Hello students, welcome to our lesson of today in the unit of Introduction to Microeconomics. My name is Dr. Phelister Njeru. Today we are going to look at the production theory. But before we go to the production theory, I want to do just a small recap about what we have been doing so far. We have tried to understand the consumer behavior. What are these factors that have, or with time, influence the decisions that are made by the consumer, and we have learned about them. Similarly, since the consumer does not operate in the vacuum, he needs the producer, because the producer is the one who provides the goods that the consumer must finally buy or not buy. We want today to look at what are these factors that influences the producer decisions. So we start by understanding what is production. Production comprises, as my slide shows, comprises of all the activities that provides goods and services that the consumer is willing to pay a price for. So it means that the producer must be able to convert the raw material, which we call the inputs, into outputs through a specific process. Like I've shown here, that the inputs must be converted to the output. This output from today, or from right now, we are going to be referring to it as Q. So the Q is a function of inputs, meaning that it is out of the inputs that the producer makes a decision on that he's able to convert to the final output. So we may have several inputs. Sometimes we refer to them as the factors of production. They are down here. These are four. We have four factors of production, which are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. For the sake of trying to understand, because every subject has got its own language, we want to talk about what we refer as land. Land is a natural gift. It is provided by nature. And man has not done anything to bring it into existence. However, for man to be able to benefit from land, he must have the competency and the skills to be able to exploit land. Every economy is endowed by different forms of land. We talk about the climate, we talk about the mountains, the rivers, the normal land that we know, the natural land. All those are land that is supposed to be exploited. It gives the primary and the secondary resources so that man can be able to improve them, to make use of them, or to make them commerciable. Land is said to be geographically immobile, but it is occupationally immobile. What do I mean? You cannot move land like from here to a different area, but you can be able to change its use. You can be able to plant, you can be able to build houses, you can be able to do so many other things on land. And therefore, land actually determines the kind of the commercial activities that people in that area are likely to engage in. Land also determines the kind of endowment that every country and every economy is likely to engage into. Then we talk about labor. What is labor? Labor is defined as both physical and mental effort that is applied in the process of production. This can be improved through education. We are able to learn more. How do we improve labor? By acquiring more competencies and acquiring more of the skills. And therefore, land is the one that is applied on, labor is the one that is applied on land to be able to improve the quality of land and the quantity of land as per se. Now, we talk about capital. Capital are all the equipments that we are able to utilize on other factors of production to be able to improve the quality and the quantity. What about entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship for economics class will define entrepreneurship as the ability or the competency to be able to combine the other factors of production into proper proportions. For example, the entrepreneur must be able to decide how much of land, how many of the laborers do I put on how much of land to get to maximize the output. Remember, the producer's aim is to maximize profits, and therefore he must always make the right decisions. And this is the person we are talking about as entrepreneur. Now, entrepreneurship may be in a different subject. Entrepreneurship, I'll define it as the ability to identify business opportunities, take up risk, and be able to come up with a product that can be commercialized. However, today in our economics class, we are looking at the ability to combine other factors of production into proper proportions to maximize output. Now, the factors of production are divided into two, or we can categorize them into two. These are fixed variables and variable factors. The fixed variables are those that cannot be changed in size or in quantity in the short run. A short run means a period less than 12 months. However, we have variable factors. This, for example, laborers. If I want to increase output, our Q, I can only engage more laborers. That can be done within a very short time. So we say the variable factors are those that can be changed, can be manipulated by the producer within the short run. However, the fixed factor, that cannot happen. It will take time for us to be able to manipulate them. That output that we are calling Q can either be classified into either durable or non-durable. The durable goods frequently are tangible goods, and they have their specific features. For example, they can be transferable from one area to another. They can be separated from the producer. Meanwhile, on the other side, the non-durable products basically are normally intangible, or frequently they are intangible. For example, a service. And they have their specific unique features. A service, for example, it expires on provision. Immediately a waiter serves you tea, that service has expired. So it has a very limited lifespan. It cannot be separated. That service cannot be separated from the service provider. And therefore, because of that, we normally say it cannot be transferred. It cannot be copied. It is unique. And that is why we say labor, it is a unique factor of production. It cannot be copied. What I'm doing right now, no one can copy. You can only provide, another lecturer can lecture their own lecture, but they cannot do what I'm doing now. Immediately I'm done with this, the service I'm providing has basically expired instantly. Now, this also, the output can either be consumer goods or producer goods. Consumer goods are already finished products. They are no longer awaiting to go through any other process. They are ready for consumption. However, we have the producer goods. The producer goods are those goods that are used to create other goods and services. And we need to differentiate them. The consumer goods they expire immediately. Once they are released and they are ready for consumption, the expiry date starts. The producer goods, they last longer, so they are more of durable products. I've talked about the factors of production, and I've talked about them being classified into either fixed factors or variable factors. Now, once those inputs have been put in the process of production, we come out with a finished product we are referring to as Q, we call it the total output. The total output, therefore, can be defined as all the amounts got from the variable factors and the fixed factors of production. It is important to know that the producer must always be able to see how much of the variable factors must he put into the process of production to get a certain amount of Q. So the Q is all the amounts that is got, the output, the entire output. The producer may be interested in trying to understand what is each of the variable factor bringing into the total. How much is it contributing to the total output? And by doing so, he needs to calculate the average product, which is the total product divided by the number of units of the variable factor. Remember, we say that one of the examples of the variable factor is employee. Any employee coming in, the producer will be interested, how much is he contributing to the final output, to the final Q. Meanwhile, we look at the marginal product. The marginal product is defined as every extra output that is brought in by an extra variable factor of production. Every person, for example, if initially they are able to produce a total output, which is Q of like 20 bags of maize. I want to give this example. And we want to engage another laborer. Will the number of bags go up or will it go down? That is the marginal product. It is calculated by getting the change in the total product divided by the change of the variable factor. Now, the reason why the producer is interested is because of the costs that are attached to every input that he brings in. So the costs that are in the process of production can also be classified into two. We have what we call the fixed costs and the variable costs. Let me differentiate between these two. The fixed costs are those that cannot be changed. They must be incurred whether there is zero output or not. Remember, some costs like rent, costs like interest, insurance, even when the factory closes down for whatever reason. For example, over Christmas time, sometimes factories close down maybe for holiday or for stock taking. Even when they are producing zero output, the company or the farm must incur what we call the fixed costs. They are not attached to any specific output, and they have to be paid. Meanwhile, we have the variable costs. These are direct costs. Whereas we say the fixed costs are indirect, the variable costs are direct because they can be traced to the final output. They can be manipulated. For example, if the producer is deciding to produce more of Q, he can engage more laborers, and as such, he must pay more wages. Now, costs like wages, costs like the cost of the raw materials, cost of fuel, all those are direct costs. The producer can be able to trace and say exactly how much went into producing this specific output. The two, the fixed cost and the variable cost, they form what we call the total cost. The total cost is all expenses that are incurred in the process of producing a certain amount of Q. We refer to them as TC, which is the total cost, is equals to fixed cost plus the variable cost as indicated on our slide here. There's something else that is of interest to us. As much as the producer would want to continue having so much of inputs, and he hopes that the output will go on, even the output follow what we call the normal curve. This normal curve is demonstrated through what we call the law of diminishing marginal returns. It states that if we hold every other factor constant, meaning we don't change the size of land, we don't change the fixed factors, as long as the fixed factor is held constant, even when we add more and more of the variable factor, a time will come, initially, the output will go up. This is the Q. This is the variable factor. We are saying we are holding the fixed factors constant. The output will increase. It will reach a maximum, and then it will start to decline. Initially, the increase it is at a high rate. Then, as it goes on towards the peak, it starts increasing, but at a decreasing rate. Once it has reached there, the top here, definitely it will come down. Why is this important? Why is this law important? The producer must be able to understand at what level is he. Is he operating where he can still increase more of input? Yes or no? If it is yes, he can still continue to increase more of the variable factor. But he must be able to identify, has he reached the maximum? Because if he increases more of the variable factor and he has reached the peak, any other person that he increases, any other variable factor that he increases in this production, it will contribute negatively to his Q. So he must be able to know at what level. Again, if he is on this other side like I am pointing, he would be operating below capacity. So it is advisable for him to continue to increase more of the variable factor. After this point, the peak here, he will be receiving negative output, and therefore it will be eating into his profitability. So a wise producer must stop at this point. He must know which Q he must stop at, so that he does not start earning negative returns. So the law states, holding other factors constant, as we add more of the variable factors and to the fixed factor, the total output and the marginal product will initially increase at an increasing rate, but beyond a certain point, it starts to decline. It is important to know that. We look at what point does he optimize the utilization of the resources. We call this optimal input utilization. We demonstrate that through what we call isoquant curve and the isocost curve. I want to differentiate between those two. The isoquant, we demonstrate it through a curve, but the isoquant is a locus of points. And they show the different levels of output that can be obtained when capital is combined with labor. I want to make an assumption that from the very beginning. For easiness of understanding, we were able to lump together the inputs and classify them, and so that we are able to deal with only capital and labor. Now, we look at the decisions that the producer must always make into what to add. These inputs, the capital and labor, once they have been put and we are looking at the output that results to it, we can demonstrate that through the isoquant, which we have said is a locus of points that shows the possible levels of output that can be achieved when K and L are combined, where K is capital and L is labor. Now, these two, they have got a cost attached, which means that the producer must always look at how much of K and L can I be able to afford, can I purchase at a given price. That is demonstrated through what we call the isocost. Now, for a firm to minimize the cost attached, he must operate at the point where the isocost curve touches the isoquant curve. It will show that on our next slide. Let's follow this clearly. On this side we have capital, on this side we have labor. The isoquant curve is convex to the origin, meaning to the coordinate 0.0. So it means that this isoquant curve has got a slope. I'm going to explain about this slope later. But it has a slope, and it is a locus of points. All these are different levels of output that can be obtained when K and L is put in the process of production. The line here, which we are seeing here, it is the isocost line, which normally in layman's language we will call it the budget line. How much can he afford to purchase? So it means that it is very possible for a producer to operate at isocost 1 isocost 2 or isocost 3. Similarly, he can operate at isoquant 1, 2, or 3. At this level, he's operating at a lower level than isocost or isoquant 2 and 3, respectively. It means that he will be optimizing the output if the isoquant curve is at this point where it has touched the isocost curve. The same with this part and the same with isoquant and isocost 3. This line, if he operates at A, B, C, meaning he's able to expand his output, he moves from isoquant 1 and isocost 1 to 2 and to 3, we refer to this as expansion path. It is the path through which the producer grows. He's able to produce at every higher level. He's combining a higher level of capital and higher level of labor, and he's able to get a higher level of output. Basically, that is the decision that the producer must be able to make. He must be able to know at what point am I maximizing the utilization of the inputs in the process of production. I talked about a slope on the isoquant curve. That slope is referred to as the marginal rate of substitution, MRTS, which says it is the rate at which the producer is willing to substitute K for L. At what point will he want to use more of capital? If he decides to use more of capital because of the price, of course, it is, we say that he is more of capital intensive. If he uses more of labor because of the price, again we say that he is labor intensive. The MRTS refers to the slope of the isoquant, and it is showing how much of capital is he willing to substitute for K and vice versa. Now, these costs, we refer to them as, I remember I talked about the total cost, and I said if Q is equals to 0, all that the producer must incur is the fixed cost. However, if Q increased or is greater than 0, then he must incur both the fixed cost and the variable cost. We are able to calculate the average cost, and the average cost, we talk about the total cost divided by Q. We are also able to calculate the marginal cost by having the first derivative on the cost function. So we talk about the marginal cost as the change in total cost divided by change in Q. Now, what about the revenue? Remember, whatever Q that has been produced, it finally is supposed to fetch the producer some money. That which he gets by selling the output, we refer to it as revenue. Or the amount that he gets by selling an output, we refer to it as total revenue. How do we calculate the total revenue? It is calculated by multiplying the price, which we are referring as P, times the Q, the amount of the output that he is able to sell. The producer is able to also calculate what is the average revenue, which is the per unit income. The per unit income, every time he sells one unit of output at whatever price, he gets the average revenue. The marginal revenue is the change in total revenue divided by change in Q, meaning every extra revenue he gets by selling an extra unit of output. The firm maximizes, and not only the firm, every other institution will always maximize its profit where the marginal cost is equals to marginal revenue. By getting the first derivative of a revenue or the cost function, we are able to get the marginal revenue or the marginal cost. Let me explain this more. The producer must be able to calculate at what point will I be maximizing my profit. He must be able to establish his marginal revenue. Marginal revenue, given the total cost, when we get the first derivative or we differentiate that function. I want to believe you know how to differentiate, or we can engage on the e-learning platform. We'll be able to demonstrate that. When we differentiate the revenue function, we get the marginal revenue. When we get the first derivative, or we differentiate the cost function, we are able to calculate the marginal revenue. To calculate the total profit that the producer will make, we subtract the total cost from the total revenue. And that way we will be able to calculate how much profit. Our interest in this particular lesson is the producer must know how much Q must he be able to produce to be able to maximize the profit, and with that Q, how much profit is he making. Now, these are the decisions that he must make. How much Q must he produce? And in that Q, how much is he making? Because he must operate at a minimum. He must operate at a break-even point. And the break-even point is where the total revenue is equal to total cost. If his total revenue is greater than the total cost, then he's making a profit. And he would be making losses if his total revenue is less than the total cost. Now, we meet for this particular part of the lesson, we meet on the e-learning platform, and therefore I'm going to the next lesson, which is the market structures. For this particular, we can meet on the e-platform, and we'll be able to explore more on that. Kindly, class, I want to look at, briefly, at the market structures. We ask ourselves, what is a market? What is the market structure? Basically, the market structure is a framework that guides the players in that market on the decisions that they must make. When we talk about the market structure, we look at the guidelines, the players, what makes them make those decisions. We have 5 types of markets that we are going to look at. The first one is the perfect competition market. And in this market, it has its own features. And one key feature is the fact that there are many buyers and many sellers. Why do we need to know that? We need to know that because when there are so many buyers and so many sellers, no specific stakeholder or buyer or seller can be able to influence in a major way the prices in this market. Why? Because there are so many. Therefore, the prices in this market are determined by the forces of demand and supply. The goods that are sold in this market are homogeneous. They are the same. For example, I want to give an example of the milk industry. Milk is milk, whether it is Irara, whether it is Brookside, whether it is KCC. At the end of the day, the consumer is buying milk. Therefore, since they are homogeneous, nobody can really claim and say mine is more superior, and therefore the consumer should pay a higher price. There is the perfect knowledge. Everybody knows what the other seller is selling, at how much each other seller is selling. There is perfect mobility of the factors of production, meaning that the producer really cannot really claim to really have a major say in the decisions of this market. There is no government regulation in this market, and the producers can only be able to earn what we call the normal profits because they really do not have much say as far as the prices are concerned. I want us to look at these curves here. This is a normal market, the perfect competition market, both in the long run and in the short run. In the short run, they may make profit because you can see the cost curves are below the revenue curves. However, in the long run, since there is free entry into this market, other people are going to come in and try to cash in on the profitability in this market. And this pushes the players in this market to keep maybe incurring extra costs on advertising, improving the quality and all that. And that pushes the costs up, and it wipes out the profitability that is likely to be made in the market. Now, in the long run, therefore, the the sellers will only make what we call normal profits. Let me quickly go to the opposite, the extreme of the market, which we call the monopoly market. This market has got only one seller and many buyers. There are legal barriers into entry or living in this market. The buyers are price takers, while the sellers are the price givers. They control the price, and because of that, both in the short run and in the long run, they make what we call the supernormal profits. Let's look at this. This is the marginal revenue curve. This is the average revenue curve. Now, this is the average cost curve and the marginal cost curve. We remember we said any firm will maximize the profits where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So at this point D, the firm is already maximizing the profit. However, they are able to sell the same Q1 at a higher per unit revenue. So because the revenue curve is above the marginal revenue curve, so they are able to make a supernormal profit equivalent to A, B, C, and D. Quickly, let me go to monopolistic competition market. This market tries to combine the features of the monopolists and the features of the perfect competition market. Now, there are many buyers and many sellers. However, the goods that are sold in this market are highly differentiated. We all can see the products that, the bathing soap that we have. We have Geisha, we have Olive, we have Dettol, we have Lifebuoy. Our consumer, because they think every producer, through color, through size, through, scent, all those, they create a small monopoly for that product. The consumer will be willing to pay an extra coin to get what they think is different for that particular product. The products are highly differentiated. There is not much government restriction. They make supernormal profits, but only in the short run. If they want to continue to make supernormal profit, they have to keep on pumping more, innovating more, being more creative, and bringing more features, introducing more features into their products. Basically, this market may not really be able to make supernormal profit for long. I want to talk about the oligopoly market. The oligopoly market has got the following features. For example, there are many buyers, but very limited sellers. A good example is the oil industry. We only have Kenocobil, we have the Total Kenya, we have Shell. There are not so many. And because of that, they have what we call the cutthroat competition in the market. What they do to survive, basically they form what we call tacit collusions. The tacit collusions allow them to operate under what we call a kinked demand curve, like I'm demonstrating here. In this kinked demand curve, the upper part of the demand curve is very elastic. The lower part is inelastic. It makes every player in this market to comply with what price they have all agreed to charge. That is why when you go to Shell and you want to have a liter of petrol, it is maybe 110. The neighboring petrol station will be selling 110 and 10 cents. Because they agree on a range of prices. That point here, the kink part, is the price they agree all of them to sell at their products. So if any one of them decide to sell at a price higher than the kink or the agreed price, they are likely, because they go to the elastic part of the demand curve, they will lose in terms of demand. If one of them goes below the kink or the agreed price, they lose in terms of price. So each one of them kind of is compelled to operate at what price they have agreed. Lastly, the duopoly market operates exactly as oligopoly market, except that they are only two players, there are only two sellers and many buyers. They must agree If they don't agree, one of them will definitely be thrown out of the market because the competition is normally very high. Finally, I want to say thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to our lesson. Any other interaction, we can do it on our e-platform. You can ask any question, and I'll be able to answer you in the e-platform. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay at home and stay safe. Thank you. God bless you.
These televised lectures supplement our robust online learning going on our MKU online platform. You can view more on our televised lectures via our online platform. We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.